Hello, everybody, and welcome to the False Prophets podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rizdon. This is episode 41, the Jonathan Majors treatment. I named it that because I don't know if you guys have heard any of the things that are going on right now, but there are some rumblings, a couple of rumors that Jonathan Majors, the star of Creed, star of Ant-Man, star of Lovecraft Country from HBO, may be getting recast as Kang the Conqueror. And this is a very, very huge thing because Kang the Conqueror, he was just in the Ant-Man movie, but he is going to be the main villain, the next Thanos, if you will, of the entire MCU. This is a huge movie plot. This guy is going to be in multiple movies, or possibly was going to be in multiple movies now. And all of this has been derailed because of an alleged abuse claim. An abuse allegation, if you will. And I don't know if any of you guys have really heard too much about this, but this is about, I would say, maybe 2 weeks ago. Jonathan Majors was in New York City. What up, NYC? And he was with his, supposed girlfriend. I bet you they're not dating right now. he was with this woman. They were in a cab. Supposedly, she was going through his phone because he got a text from some girl. And the way the story goes through the tabloids is that he hit her when she was going through his phone and that he may have even choked her. These are all just rumors. These are all allegations. They may or may not be true. I don't know. I was not there. None of us really know, and we don't know how far this is going to go. Jonathan Majors did end up getting arrested that night, I believe, for the domestic spat. And when this first came out, this was a very, very big thing. This was a serious, serious issue. Not only, of course, you have, more liberal kind of woke people getting behind the whole cancelization thing, of course, starting a whole cancel mob. These things happen. Sometimes they are extremely necessary and people do need to go, so I understand that as well. But they started the whole cancel mob, bro. They started going after him, saying all sorts of things. Then people on Twitter, different directors and certain people who knew Jonathan Majors in Yale were also alluding to him sort of having a history of doing these things. I don't know if that is true. I don't know if it's, not true. Who the fuck knows? But as time went on, they started talking about how apparently Jonathan Majors was the one that called the police to the incident. And now the girl who said that she was strangled and slapped is now recanting her entire story. This is something that I feel like we see all the time. And these type of domestic disputes happen all the time. I think, I've never been in one personally, but at the same time, a lot of couples, they do fight, dude. And it's not always a angry, drunk husband hitting his wife because the roast is cold. Sometimes men and women, when they're in tumultuous, toxic relationships, they hit each other, and that's not a good thing to do, but that is something that does happen. That is a truth and a reality of this world. And I'm thinking that possibly that's more where this goes. I don't know if he actually strangled her or hit her. That's definitely something you shouldn't be doing as a man. But I just want to say that I feel like, I don't know the magnitude of the thing, but I feel like him being recast, especially as we don't know all the facts of this situation, is kind of just wrong. And I think right now we're in this weird time where cancel culture is such a big thing, and we're in a time of technology as well too. And don't worry, I'm going to get to that, where I think people look at others as dispensable. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the constant recasting, the constant cancellations, the constant shit talking of people who know nothing about any of these things that have ever fucking happened. It's annoying and it's ridiculous. And it leaves a lot of losers and people who have never tapped into their own potential. It gives them a battery in their back to feel good about themselves for never having tried anything in life. I think that's really what a lot of the cancel culture shit comes from. It doesn't come for a need for accountability. It comes from a lot of consumers, viewers, fans not wanting to take accountability in their own lives, so they force and project accountability onto other people in these dramatized situations. You know, for every time that some actor or some rapper or some, athlete gets into something and everybody says, strip him of this, strip him of that, get rid of this, get rid of that. Yeah, sure, there's 20% of the people who actually do care and they're very serious and they're like, yo, this is not cool and this person needs to pay. But then there's a lot of other people, I would say a vast 80%, that are just simply there eating popcorn to watch and hope that the person who was confident enough to actually step outside and do something with their life falls on their face and learns that they should have never stepped outside and done something with their life. And I think this is something that it's not just through liberalism. I think it's just something that is based in technology and where we're going with each other. I feel like technology has kind of illegitimized everything. Like Twitter, now everybody's a writer. And so nobody sees comedians as someone who has any sort of skill. Instagram, everybody's a photographer, everybody's a director. So they don't see any of these actors or any of these directors as people who have any sort of skill. And it's funny, too, because I feel like all this stuff has really just been, all the technology that's come out for some reason has only illegitimized art. But it hasn't really illegitimized any like normal person thing. So really what it is just clipping the wings of the people who dare to fly. And I think that's a really unfair thing. And I think people need to kind of fall back and, kind of zoom out a little bit and kind of look at themselves in the mirror as well too. And realize that, bro, listen, for every person that shits on Jonathan Majors, there's another person that has a Jonathan Majors type story about how some girl said that he hit her and he never hit her. You know what I'm saying? And these things happen. I mean, we just saw the whole thing with Johnny Depp, right? And for the longest time before that had happened, during the case, things started shifting over more fire onto Amber Heard. But before that had happened, the whole vibe of the world was more like Johnny Depp is done. He's a piece of shit. He's an asshole. And he lost everything. And even in this defamation case, him winning, he still hasn't regained the things that he had before he lost them. You know what I mean? When he was in his original standing. And I think that's something that needs to be said a little bit. I think it's very easy. Yes, it's very easy to just simply see some salacious shit and just be like, well, the person that's accused of the thing obviously did it. But we're living in a country where it is innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. And I think people need to realize that. And also people need to realize how hard artists work every single day to get to where they need to be. I think there's this thought that, because again, with technology and how quickly certain people can just randomly pop off, that type of shit does happen. And it's always happened, even before the apps, you know what I mean? But for 99% of those people, bro, they were broke the whole fucking time, man. Or maybe they came from a family that was rich or something, but they still worked their ass off studying scripts, studying other actors, studying different movies, studying what the industry wants, sitting there day in, day out. Like, look at me, look at what I'm doing. I'm a guy with a very, very small YouTube channel. Shout out to all my viewers. That's great. But I don't get that many views. I don't do that much shit. You know what I mean? And I'm still here grinding away every single day, trying to get more and more and more views out of everything. And if I was to be video podcasting all the fucking time, grinding it out in New York, doing stand-up comedy for over a decade, which is what I've been doing, and I start directing movies and I start shooting, and then I finally pop off 10 years later from now. I'm 31. Imagine if I've already been doing comedy for 10 years, this is all true. I started when I was 18. Now I'm 31. So I've actually been doing it for like 12, but let's say even now, I'm still not going to pop off and it's going to be another decade before I pop off, right? By then I'll be 41 years old, right? And then something happens and somebody says something about me and I lose it all. People just will flippantly just be like, oh, well, yeah, he fucked himself. Yeah, that shit sucks. He shouldn't have been around that girl or whatever. But they're not realizing, all the work that it took to get to that place, and how life isn't that simple in that black and white. You can say it's that simple in that black and white when you're living at home and not doing anything to make yourself better in your own life. In fact, you want to say those things so that you feel better about yourself. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people, honestly, no matter how kind of tapped in they worked hard, dude. They worked hard. I mean, people talk about that whole Nepo baby shit and everything like that. And, that shit is corny, whatever. But, and I can't say I wouldn't be doing the same thing. I mean, if only black people had more nepotism in the world, that's some real shit. But even those people who are the children of those actors, it's not like they're falling asleep in the audition room, get woken up, and then they just get the role. They did have to study. They did have to come hard at that role. They did have to talk to the right people. They did have to go to the right parties. And all those things feed into the mix of talent, hard work, and just diligence, and to lose that over one night over something that other people can't even truly verify is it's just wrong. And like I said, to any victims that have ever been through anything, I'm sorry for that. But I'm saying if there's some things that are just simply unverifiable, you know what I mean? If there are things that are just simply he said, she said, then I think it's a little bit unfair. And, listen, if it turns out that he did do all those things, then, it is what it is, and that sucks too. But if it turns out that he just legitimately had rumors spread about him, I think he deserves more than just simply being able to still be Kang the Conqueror. I think he deserves an apology. He'll never get one. Let's just be honest about that. He will never get one, but that is what he deserves. It's so funny in this world that we live in right now, especially when it comes to like allegation type stuff. I mean, we're dealing with the Dalai Lama as well too, going through his whole fucking thing, which at first I was completely disgusted and I thought it was very weird and everything. But then I started reading from a lot of Tibetan people, and supposedly in their culture, exactly what he did is actually like more of a commonplace game between the youth and the elderly. Here it's a weird custom or whatever. It seems strange, but it's actually something that I guess they just do. It's like the whole thing is give me a hug, give me a kiss on the nose, and then the whole thing of suck my tongue. That's what it translates to in English, but supposedly it means eat my tongue, which means like, the elderly is like, oh, we give everything for children. That's supposed to be the whole concept of the whole thing, is like, we give everything for children. So I give you a hug, I give you a kiss, and then, and then you eat my tongue. I know it sounds strange, but yeah, supposedly it's just some custom thing that a lot of Tibetans have come out and said, like, hey, dude, like, things got lost in translations, things got lost culturally, but, they at least do not see him as a pedophile. I'm not, trying to, kind of cover any of that stuff up, because there's a lot of nasty people in this world. I mean, obviously we saw from all the Epstein stuff, and there's a lot of nasty, highly powerful people in this world out there doing a lot of truly awful things. So I'm not trying to denounce any of that, but I'm saying that, people are always so quick to denounce anybody who the world always already sees as having worth. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about. I mean, and, not just that. When it comes to allegations and assaults and stuff like that, and SA type stuff, there's a lot of double standards. There's a lot of simple double standards that go into these things. And I think that's the most awful part. I mean, you have Cardi B talking about the Dalai Lama and how disgusting he is, but yet she used to drug men and steal from them. And then when people called her out on, hey, why are you talking about the Dalai Lama used to drug men and steal from them, she still painted the picture as her being the victim of like, oh, well, these were horny guys trying to sleep with me. It's like, bitch, you're a stripper. You're a stripper at a strip club who sells pussy, okay? And they offered to buy your pussy. All right? That's a pretty simple thing. That doesn't go that far. That's a typical transaction at a strip club. If you didn't want to have sex with the guy, because this is a transaction, you're not on a date, and it's not like he's just rolling up pressuring you and everything. if obviously if the dude fucking presses you and it's just like, we're gonna go back to the champagne room, yeah, then drugging them probably still isn't great, but I can understand that. But if it's just a simple transaction of just like a strip club guy that comes to a strip club and asks you for this sort of transaction and you oblige in that transaction and then you drug him and rob him, that's awful. And you're the predator in that situation. But we're living in such a world right now where no matter what a woman does, she's never the predator. She's only the victim. And I think, I think over time that has to stop. And hopefully it eventually does. I don't know, what else to say about it. I mean, even if the Jonathan Majors thing, with the Jonathan Majors thing, right? I was just saying how couples sometimes hit each other, right? But if we were going to, if that is the actual case that actually happened, where imagine if his girl was hitting him instead of him hitting her. You know what I mean? This wouldn't, if anything, this wouldn't be a big story. It wouldn't be a big story, but it would also be probably funny. People would just make fun of him for it. Oh, your girl hits you, blah, 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 blah. Oh, nigga, I thought you was a real man. Oh, it's Creed 4. Like, that's what niggas would say. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of different things and a lot of dynamics that go into a lot of these things. And I think we're living in this time where, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't know the personal lives of these famous people. And I wish it was still like that. I wish it really was still like that. I don't think you should. Because then once you start knowing their personal lives, you start knowing that they're fallible. And once you start knowing that they're fallible, you start getting angry that they're fallible, yet still more successful than you are. You see? And then from that causes you to take anything that you might hear about them and try to destroy their lives. And it's wrong. It's just wrong. Time for another subject. The King Von documentary is out by Trap Lord Ross. Some of you may have seen on No Jumper or The Shade Room or Vlad TV, but Trap Lord Ross, I believe he is the nephew of Tim Westwood, has come out and created a documentary about King Von. He accused King Von of being a serial killer. A lot of people are mad at Trap Lord Ross. I actually think that the only one you can really be mad at is King Von for doing these murders and for doing these things to his own people and his own community. And as far as exposing anything, King Von exposed pretty much all of it. If you watch any of the documentary and if you've listened to any of King Von's bars, any of his songs, or if you've followed him on Twitter, he told you that he was doing all of these things. And he didn't just allude to them. He told you explicitly that he was doing these things. The only thing he may have left out was the victims' names at times. And that's it. So there's no one to blame in this but King Von. I think that is one thing that needs to be said. But another thing that needs to be said, though, is I think that Trap Lord Ross definitely needs to watch out for karma and how the world goes nowadays, because the world is about exposing people and putting things out there. And if you don't know Trap Lord Ross, his uncle is Tim Westwood. He's a very, very famous DJ out in the UK, I believe in London. So he'd put on a lot of UK artists, but he was especially famous for being the guy who would put on American rappers in the UK. So like the biggest famous American guy would come over to the UK, come over to London, and they'd freestyle for Tim Westwood TV. I grew up on Tim Westwood TV. I would watch that stuff all the time on YouTube. And about 2 or 3 years ago, Tim Westwood actually got accused by multiple women of SA and of other things that may even be worse than that, and that destroyed Tim Westwood and his whole entire reputation. And if we're being honest, one of the main reasons that Trap Lord Ross has the big following that he does is because of his own uncle. So I think he's someone who has definitely seen someone get exposed and called out and destroyed, whether or not his uncle did any of these things or not. That's not the debate. I mean, it's a very high possibility it's that many women that, that those things that he was accused of probably did happen. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they didn't. What I'm saying is that Trap Lord Ross has seen what happens when people get exposed, and how it can destroy someone's career. And for you to expose anyone or put things out there to anyone, regardless of if they're alive or dead, just brings a lot of bad karma. This is something that I'm seeing a lot in YouTube stuff, in content creator stuff, is people are always trying to expose people. People are always trying to put stuff out there about other people, but they don't realize that we all have things that could come out about us. We all have someone that could say something bad about us and put us on the chopping block as well, you know? And that's one thing that I think Trap Lore Ross should kind of learn. It's like, you should have learned from your your uncle that maybe putting something out about somebody else isn't the best idea, because you know how detrimental it can be to somebody's life and their legacy when things do come out. And if there's anything about you, buddy, like, all bets are off now. It's the same thing with Adam 22. Adam 22 is somebody who's been accused of multiple acts of SA and, and other things, being with young girls and stuff like that, when he definitely shouldn't have. He's supposedly been exposed by people like Little Pump and the Perv Busters. On his own YouTube channel, he was exposed by the Perv Busters, which is wild. It's like, buddy, you got to run a tighter ship. But you could almost say that this is karma for Adam, because his whole entire platform is constantly about exposing people for things. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Certain things can just be life shit. Not everything has to be for the internet. And once you put out everything for the internet, you kind of invite everything in your personal life to be put out on the internet as well. And I've noticed that. I mean, again, he exposed, House Phone for dealing with a trans woman, which there's nothing wrong with that, but he exposed him and he outed him when House Phone had always stuck by him, even during all those allegations and everything, right? And then on top of that, he also exposed Shy Glizzy when Adam had the porn star Sky Breon, who basically accused him of, I don't know, trying to do all sorts of weird stuff that I won't go into detail here because I'm still trying to get monetized. But she accused him of all this stuff and this, that, and the third, and he's outed multiple people on multiple different occasions. And, so now when his whole thing about the 16-year-olds starts happening with the Perv Busters, the whole thing about everybody leaving him and now kind of shitting on him, it's like, yeah, that's now all fair game because you never operated fairly. So if you don't operate fairly, what's everybody's incentive to treat you fairly as well? This whole game, bro, I'm just a small fish in a vast, vast ocean, but I can already tell you that this game doesn't have to go the way that these people are playing it. It doesn't. All you have to do is simply talk about yourself and how you feel about certain subjects. You don't have to go around, putting everybody on blast and taking out sensitive subjects about certain people that you're supposedly friends with and then act as if it's content. It is content, but it doesn't have to be. And all your stuff could have went just as viral if you didn't say any of those things. And now, look at No Jumper now. It's fucking empty. It's him and Sharp. It's that. It's him and Sharp in the Sharp Tank, and that's it, man. And it's just a shame, and this is something that I think trickles down even farther from just content creating. It happens in comedy and stuff too. I've been doing comedy for an entire fucking decade, for over a decade, and it's so funny because I got out of, or I didn't really get out of. I'm still doing stand up and stuff. I'm actually planning a little bit of a tour in a few weeks and stuff. So I didn't get out of it, but it's still the concept of, I decided to, because I was tired of how manipulative people can be, how cutthroat people can be, how backstabbing people can be, I decided to get into the internet game to kind of build a name for myself and build a place of safety and comfortability and build a fan base that fucks with me as who I am as a human being. And then as I get into it, I'm realizing that this is all the same bullshit that I was just running away from. So, it's one of those things where I don't know if it's just the entertainment industry or is this how it goes when anyone wants anything at a high level. It's so funny because it's like, if you operate on a high level, then it usually means you have a high level of intelligence or dedication. But it's so funny is that while you simultaneously are showing that about yourself to other people, that you're smart, that you're this highly creative person, also while you're in the scene of these things, you kind of become an animal yourself too. You lose a lot of yourself. And I'll be real, I was thinking about this today and just how many friends that I've lost just simply through simple betrayals, things that I just never thought that I would have to give up. And I get what they mean by sacrifices. I think when you're a kid and you watch those movies about someone trying to be famous and, they don't talk to the people from their hometown anymore and all that stuff. I think you think about it in so much more of a superficial way. And you think about it as like, well, I'm not going to be the guy that, if those people are cool with me, I'm not going to be the guy that leaves them. And what you're not going to realize that a lot of those people leave you. I bet you'd be surprised about how many people stopped talking to Post Malone when he was still on the road to becoming Post Malone, and how little people he cut off while he was on the road to becoming Post Malone. I think there's a lot of parts of you that you have to let go of, not simply sacrifice, but you truly have to surrender to, you have to let go of in order to live the life you want. And I think that's why so many talented people fall to the wayside and go back to having regular jobs, because I'll tell you right now, dude, this shit is not for everybody. When I say this shit's not for everybody, doing this in my aunt's, guest room is the easy part. The hard part is the networking, the backstabbing, the not knowing if people are really there for you, or if they just like the fact that you're popping right now, or the fact of you wanting to do things with your friends that are your core, your heart, these people that you love, but they don't have the same level of motivation you do. They have motivation, but your motivation's up here and their motivation's down here. And in order for you to operate at the highest form of performance that you can, you have to leave them by the wayside, but you also can't resent them for that. And you also can't always necessarily tell them that either, because if you do tell them that, then they will leave and they might never be your friend again, because they're going to be insulted by the fact that you don't think that you and them have the same level of dedication. This game will eat you alive, man. I had about 8 different things I was going to talk about, and I feel like it's just kind of come all full circle back around to all this bullshit about the industry and how things are, man. It's really tough. It's so funny too. One of these things actually kind of fits into what I'm talking about, and I hope this episode does well. I know I do more like news type stuff, but I'm just here to air things out. I don't really care. This is my channel. This is my time, and right now the viewership's in a place where I don't want to lose the 30 viewers, but if I do, because I'm trying to be sincere and genuine with the people that actually do connect with this podcast, then I will sacrifice that as well too. This news story actually does kind of fit in with everything, but Donald Glover was actually recently talking about his Tyler Perry episode for Atlanta, and he was talking about, in GQ, he did an interview talking about how he actually rode around with Tyler Perry, around Tyler Perry's studio. I forget what his studio is called. It's like the biggest thing in Atlanta. The thing's huge. It's a giant compound. It's massive. So apparently, Tyler Perry takes Donald Glover around, shows him everything, shows him the ropes. Really, really cool. And then Donald Glover proceeds to do an entire episode parodying Tyler Perry, and supposedly Tyler Perry was very, very upset by that, and and they really haven't talked since. And I have to say that as a comedian, I understand what Donald Glover is doing. And I also have to say too, I'm not a Tyler Perry fan. Like, I don't think his movies are good. I actually think they're pretty shit. But I respect him as a black man and like as a businessman and a black creative and just creative in general. The fact that he was living in his car one day, created this character, and now he has a series of plays that led to a series of movies that have now led to him being probably one of the biggest landowners in all of Atlanta, right? I believe. Like it's amazing. It's truly amazing, and you have to give it up for that. But I understand what Donald Glover is doing as someone who does also thinks Tyler Perry shit is kind of stupid and kind of corny, and as someone who thinks that Donald Glover is very, very funny. But there is a part of me that does see that as kind of corny. You're kicking somebody who's already down, and it might not seem like he's down because, yes, he's this like rich guy. But when it comes to people who actually know film, who actually know television, who actually watch this shit, who aren't a bunch of 50-year-old black church ladies, Tyler Perry is not cool. Childish Gambino / Donald Glover is fucking cool, okay? And he's the one that the young kid wants to be. It's not Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry knows that, and has probably known that about a bunch of other directors and actors and writers, and it probably bothers him, and it's probably always bothered him for a really, really long time. And you know, I'm not going to lie, you know, a part of me sees myself as Donald Glover because I am the comedian and because I have made jokes about people and niggas get salty or whatever the fuck. But then another part of me sees myself as Tyler Perry too. And I think this whole episode, I think, is encompassing of the concept of being the odd man out. Even when you're winning, you can be the odd man out. And you know, I was just watching Tyler, the Creator, on the Rap Caviar documentary series that they have, and he was the first one, and it was about breaking the mold. And basically, you know, Tyler, the Creator, was talking about how, you know, he felt like he couldn't get in to the typical mainstream hip hop world. The kids still loved him and shit. And yeah, he still had to have money, you know, and everything like that. But he was never getting played on the radio. He just wasn't that guy. He just wasn't that type of dude, you know? And he kind of brought it in the perfect way of like, he was like, oh, well, you guys won't give me a seat at the table? Well, then I'll make my own table. And it's like, you build your own table, you build your own chairs, you have your own shit. You, not even just your own table, you build your own house. And that's great. And your table's built and it's beautiful and it's immaculate. But a part of you still wants to get invited for Thursday night dinners at their table. And I think that is something that is just so true and so poignant of people like Tyler Perry. And, you know, even people maybe who have gotten canceled or even people who have gotten it out the mud for independence. People like, you know, DJ Academics and a lot of YouTubers as well, too, where, you know, yes, everybody says that like, oh, these YouTubers and stuff are richer than the rappers and they're more rich than the actors. But there's still a chip on those people's shoulders because they're still not fully let in to the scene of mainstream acceptance as full-on celebrities, you know? And while, yes, they are crying and dabbing their eyes with $100 bills, tears are still tears. And I think that still has meaning, and you know, and you have to understand why doing something like making fun of Tyler Perry in that setting would hurt him so much. And it's so funny too because, like, you know, the only other person that's made fun of Tyler Perry was the Boondocks, and the whole thing was that he was gay and all sorts of shit. And supposedly he may have even like filed like some sort of like defamation case and shit like that. And bro, when I was a kid, I thought that shit was hilarious, and I still think it's fucking hilarious, honestly. Even when things hurt people's feelings, they're still funny. Okay, it is comedy first with me. I'll be real with you, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, dude, like, do you really expect him to take all that shit in stride? Because it's not like you're making fun of the way he talks or the way he acts. One of you guys is just calling one person, Aaron McGruder, star creator of one of the most influential black television shows ever in comedy, is just making a whole episode dedicated to calling you gay. And then the other, big famous black comedy creator is basically making fun of you for creating awful, terrible, melodramatic bullshit dreck for black audiences. So how do you not be offended? Even if you do see these people as great creators and great artists, as Donald Glover said, he was like, oh, well, I get how he feels, but the difference is I'm a good artist. And, if it was a regular artist, I could feel, I can understand how he feels, but I'm a good artist and I'm very funny and I know how it works. And it's like, yeah, you are very funny. And I'm sure there's a part of him that does chuckle at it, but there's a part of him that's sincerely hurt. And I think that just goes into, again, being the odd man out. I think there's a lot of people who are that nowadays, but still have to deal with people not seeing that and not knowing why they're upset for the reasons why they're upset. Like DJ Academics wouldn't be as much of a dick if people actually fucked with him, but they don't fuck with him. So that causes him to act out. You know what I mean? He's the most seen guy ever, but his audience isn't even in front of him. So it's like, how real is your impact? And he knows it's real. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he possibly has the biggest impact, of anybody in the hip hop sector, as far as like media goes, but none of it's there. None of it's tangible. None of it's, you know what I mean? He's not Charlemagne, where everybody puts their hand on his shoulder. What's up, bro? And, as much as we like to act as if those things don't matter, those things matter profusely. Those things matter so fucking much. And, my heart goes out to the people that deal with it, because I deal with it too as well, and I think people need to think a lot more about how callously they treat people, even if they're on top. I hope you guys have gotten something out of this podcast today. I know I have. I don't know if this was a podcast or a therapy session, but hopefully it was beneficial to the both of us. I'm going to tune out tonight. I'm going to head to sleep, and then I got work in the morning tomorrow. So I had to put this out. I had to do this for you guys. I'm trying to get on a better schedule. I love you guys. This has been the False Prophets Podcast. And if you take anything from this show today, just remember to treat people right. And remember that when you're trying to put things out about somebody, just know that if you're the type of guy who does that, or lady who does that about everybody, eventually someone's going to come knocking on your door. And when they do, I hope there's nothing in your closets. That's the False Prophets Podcast. I'll see you guys later. Peace.